Jensen Huang, the architect of a modern artificial intelligence era, recently outlined the 5 absolute foundational layers of AI value. If you look closely at this global matrix, a terrifying macroeconomic reality emerges. The United States, China, Taiwan, and the Netherlands and Korea own the entire stack. India, despite its massive global recognized IT reputation, currently has absolutely no sovereign presence in any of them. If you are an Indian software developer, a product manager, or a tech executive, you're likely sitting in a comfortable office in Bangalore, Hyderabad, or Dubai. Assuming your career is secure because you work in tech, you are operating under a catastrophic multi-generational illusion. You are not building the future, you're renting it. The 30-year-old national bet on services over heavy manufacturing has created a highly lucrative $250 billion export industry, and it has left the country entirely dependent on foreign balance sheets for most critical technological revolution in human history. Before I completely deconstruct Jensen Huang's 5-layer AI matrix, expose the brutal reality of a $1 billion versus $100 billion sovereign gap, and give you the precise architectural blueprint for how Indian talent can aggressively pivot to avoid this. Hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell. I post daily videos showing you exactly how to navigate the global labor and capital market using cold, hard engineering logic. You do not want to miss these execution protocols. Stop building thin wrappers on someone else's intelligence. Grab a notebook. It is time to stop acting like a service provider and start operating like an owner of the stack. Welcome back. I'm Dr. HR. I hold a PhD in Human Resources, a master's from prestigious Tata Institute of Social Sciences TSMC in Mumbai, and a bachelor's in computer engineering. I do not look at global technology as a PR exercise or a subject for blind national pride. I look at it as a raw computation of geopolitical leverage and human capital. Operating on the ground here in Dubai since 2010, consulting for Tier 1 corporate entities and analyzing global talent migration, I watch exactly where the capital flows. The global AI war is not a software competition, it is an infrastructure monopoly. Let us systematically deconstruct this massive geopolitical shift and your personal survival protocol through 5 distinct phases: the hardware monopoly, the cloud illusion, the wrapper trap, the 30-year sovereign debt, and the engineering pivot. Phase 1, the hardware monopoly, layer 1 and 2, energy and the chips. The foundation of artificial intelligence is not the code, it is the physics. Layer 1 is energy. A modern hyperscale AI campus now draws between 1 and 2 gigawatt of power. That is the equivalent of a mid-sized nuclear reactor required simply to keep one single building operational. China added nearly India's entire installed grid in new capacity last year alone. In India, the grid is stretched to its absolute maximum. Industrial power is expensive, and delivering clean, uninterrupted 24/7 power for hyperscale data centers present an intense, almost unsurmountable logistic friction point. If you cannot power the god, you cannot host the god. Layer 2 is the chip. This is the silicon brain and everything required to manufacture it. The fundamental design is monopolized entirely by the United States, companies like Nvidia, AMD, and Broadcom. The cutting-edge fabrication is entirely owned by TSMC in Taiwan. The high bandwidth memory, HBM, sitting beside every single GPU is 90% controlled by Korea, and the extreme ultraviolet EUV lithography machines required to actually print these microscopic trans, a total unbreakable global monopoly held by ASML in Netherlands. The raw silicon wafer and photoresist are 60% to 90% dominated by Japan. Where does India sit in the hardware matrix? There is no frontier chip factory. The highly publicized Tata TSMC joint venture in Dholera is a brilliant, necessary strategic start, targeting the 28 nanometer to 110 nanometer nodes. But you must accept the mathematics. 28 nanometer is a full decade behind the frontier node required for cutting-edge AI training. India possesses world-class elite chip design talent. Walk into any major semiconductor lab in the world and you will find Indian engineer executing the architecture. But that talent worked for Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, and Intel. The intellectual property, the patent leverage, and the ultimate financial value flow directly back to the US balance sheets. The human capital is Indian, the equity is American. Phase 2, the cloud illusion, layer 3 AI infrastructure. Layer 3 is an AI infrastructure. This is the data center and the massive physical ecosystem surrounding the chips. The United States dominates the hyperscale cloud layer with Amazon Web Services (AWS), Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform (CGP). China completely controls its own sovereign hemisphere with Alibaba and Tencent. The specialized servers and high-density AI rack liquid cooling systems are owned by Supermicro, Vertiv, Schneider in France, and Eaton. The raw commodities required to build these systems, copper from Chile and Peru, niobium from Brazil, and rare earth metals are overwhelmingly processed and controlled by China. India has a massive, highly competent structural companies like Adani, Reliance, and Yota, building the physical data center buildings. Firms like BHEL, BHEL, Crompton, and Blue Star are providing generic industrial power and cooling gear. But there is a massive distinction between the generic industrial HVAC and a hyper-specialized liquid cooling required for a cluster of 10,000 H100 GPUs. There is no sovereign Indian hyperscale cloud dominating the global market. There are no proprietary Indian-owned AI power cells defining the standards for global compute. Every single Indian AI startup currently raising venture capital in Bangalore or Guru is running its models on AWS or Azure. You are building a massive digital house on rented foreign land. If the geopolitical wind shifts or the American landlord decides to exponentially raise the rent on compute, the Indian AI startup business model collapses overnight. Phase 3, the wrapper trap. Layer 4 and 5, models and applications. Layer 4 is the models. The closed source frontier is exclusively owned by OpenAI and Google and Meta. The open source frontier is aggressively being claimed by high-efficiency Chinese models like DeepSeek, Qwen, and Kimi. India has companies like Real Team doing highly necessary foundational work in multilingual and Indic language processing. But you must look at the raw compute objectively and unsentimentally. They are the orders of the magnitude below the global frontier. Layer 5 is application. This is where the danger peaks for Indian tech professionals. India has legendary, globally respected SaaS companies like Zoho and Freshwork. But look closely at thousands of new Indian AI startups. The vast majority of them are thin wrappers. They do not own the intelligence. They take an API key from OpenAI or Anthropic, build a slick user interface, add a prompt template, and call it a proprietary AI product. They are not agentic. Agents are where the autonomous flywheels of the future lives. A system like Agentforce from the US or coding agent like Cursor represent through autonomous execution. India currently has no agentic platform operating at a dominant global sovereign scale. If your entire business model or your entire software engineering job is simply routing user prompt to an American model, OpenAI can delete your entire company with a single unannounced software update. You do not possess a moat. You possess a temporarily UI convenience. Phase 4, the 30-year sovereign debt. Service versus manufacturing. We must trace this structural deficit back to the root cause. This is a 30-year-old macroeconomic choice. Decades ago, India bet aggressively on IT services and essentially bypassed a heavy capital technological manufacturing. Companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, SCL built a $250 billion export industry. It paid off massively. It lifted millions out of poverty, created a globally recognized middle class, and established India as a back office of the world. But the services sit at the very top of a stack. Services do not own the stack. When you are a service provider, your margins are constantly compressed. You are fundamentally selling human labor, not structural infrastructure. In the AI era, the exact labor that Indian IT sector monetized, basic coding, quality assurance, testing, back-end administrative maintenance, and customer support is the exact labor that the large language models automate. Now look at the sovereign commitment. India's highly publicized AI mission is an investment of roughly $1 billion. China's sovereign investment is an entire AI supply chain, from rare earth extraction and processing to the legacy chip fab to the frontier model, is in hundreds of billions of dollars. This is not a gap you can close through extra working hours, motivational speeches, or sheer national willpower. That gap defines the entire game. The United States and China are playing a high-stakes trillion-dollar game for an absolute global infrastructural dominance. Based on current investment, India is positioned to simply be an IT service desk for that new infrastructure. Phase 5, the engineering pivot, how Indian talent can prepare. If you are an Indian tech professional, a software engineer, or a corporate executive, how do you survive this global reality? You cannot wait for the government to build the infrastructure. You must execute an immediate, uncompromising personal pivot. Step 1. Abandon the wrapper mindset. Stop building superficial SaaS application that just call an API. The era of the generic coder is over. You must pivot your cognitive bandwidth towards deep structural engineering. If you are going to write code, learn to write hardware-level code, understand the CUDA optimization, master the physics of spiking neural network SNN and edge device deployment, move down the stack. If you cannot build the brain, learn how to aggressively optimize the silicon that runs it. Step 2. Weaponize Lean Six Sigma for AI workflow. Do not just be passive consumer of AI, become the architect of the integration. Use rigorous, unsentimental methodologies like Lean Six Sigma to physically embed AI agent into complex, localized industries. The West is building the brain, but the brain requires a nervous system to operate in a messy physical world of regional supply chains, domestic healthcare, and legacy manufacturing. You must transition from remote IT support to high-friction, boots-on-the-ground system integration. Identify the exact latency in a domestic Indian manufacturing plant and wire the intelligence directly into their revenue stream. Step 3. Target the sovereign infrastructure. Align your career with entities attempting to build the sovereign stack. Do not just blindly accept a high salary at a foreign multinational where your intellectual property is extracted and sent to California. Seek out the hardware startup, the data center architecture firm, and semiconductor design companies operating under Make in India initiative. Yes, the Tata TSMC fab in Dholera is starting at 28 nanometer, but it is a critical beachhead. That massive factory needs supply chain architect, fluid dynamics experts, precision manufacturing engineers, and operational leader. Position yourself inside the physical infrastructure, not the ethereal software cloud. Step 4. Build sovereign media and proof of work. If you are engineering these solutions, you must document them. You must build a high-fidelity proof of work ecosystem. Record your integrations using Cineline cameras, color grade them in DaVinci Resolve, and broadcast your unshakable competence to the global market. Do not just be another anonymous developer in a sea of millions. Project absolute executive authority. You have a choice. You can continue to be a rented commodity, writing wrappers for foreign models and waiting for an algorithm to automate your middle management IT job, or you can step completely out of the service mentality, master the foundational physics of artificial intelligence, and begin building the sovereign infrastructure. The wealth of the next 50 years belong exclusively to those who owns the stack. Process the data, execute the strategy, and I'll see you at the top.